First, the Trump administration yesterday announced new sanctions on Russia. They're in response to Moscow's use of a nerve agent on a former Russian double agent, Sergei Skripal, and his daughter. The attack occurred earlier this year in Britain. Russia has denied any involvement. Daniel Fried had a 40-year career in the Foreign Service. He served on the National Security Council for both Republican and Democratic presidents. And during the Obama administration, he crafted U.S. sanctions against Russia when it invaded Ukraine. Welcome back to the NewsHour.
Thanks for having me.
So how big a deal are these new sanctions on Russia?
It's significant that we are making the Russians pay a price for their nerve gas attack in the UK. The sanctions themselves aren't huge. They're modest to moderate, and in the first round, they'll have to be a second round, or probably be a second round.
The second round, these are the ones that could end up being imposed right around our election day in November.
Yeah, the way the law is written, the first round of sanctions comes quickly, and then there's a 3-month pause, and if the offending country has not stopped it or given us assurances that it won't do it again, the administration has to apply new sanctions from a menu. That menu goes from light to very heavy. So the Trump administration is going to have a choice to make.
So there is some flexibility that they have to go very strong on these or to go softer on those.
That's right. And there are waiver provisions in the law, so the administration will not be boxed in and forced to do something stupid. I think that they're going to judge the additional sanctions based on what Russia's doing, but it's a significant step. The Russian markets took a hit today, and that's because sanctions are a game of expectations. Are they going up? Are they going down? Is the administration determined? And I think the Russians are beginning to realize that whatever deal or arrangement they thought they had or believed they might have with President Trump, the U.S. administration is acting in this area and others to push back on Russian aggression, which is a good thing.
So is it your sense then that these sanctions will have an impact and actually change Russian behavior?
That I don't want to be extravagant and suggest that suddenly the Russians are going to see these sanctions and retreat. But certainly it shows that the Russian nerve gas attack in the UK is not going to be ignored, that the United States stepped up and acted in solidarity with the UK, with a European ally. That's a good thing. And it's an important lesson to the Russians that they don't have a free fire zone to start murdering their political opponents around the world while we stand by.
This, of course, is coming in the midst of a very uncertain relationship with the Russians. I mean, even put aside Ukraine and Syria, put aside concerns over past meddling in our elections and perhaps future meddling in our elections. This has got to be a very difficult moment for the administration to figure out how to respond.
Well, there are two levels of difficulty. One, it is difficult to know the best way to push back against Russian aggression, especially when it's in so many areas. Right? The Russians invade their neighbor Ukraine, they interfere in our elections, they try to assassinate people they don't like around the world, they're engaged in various corrupt activities all over the place. So it's hard to know how to work, it's hard to figure out how best to deal with this challenge. But there's a second challenge. You have an administration which is acting one way and a president who is speaking in an entirely different way. And I've never seen this before.
You're describing the sort of cleavage between the administration saying, we're going to impose sanctions, we're going to crack down, we're going to sanction the Russians, and yet the president seems completely unwilling to publicly say to Russia, say to Vladimir Putin, stop.
Before that notorious press conference in Helsinki when President Trump met President Putin, President Trump said publicly that the problems in U.S.-Russia relations were largely the fault of America. He blamed America first. I've never seen a president do that ever. We didn't cause these problems, Vladimir Putin did. And to have the president go into his meeting with Putin by throwing rocks at his own country is something I've never seen. I've seen divided governments Oh, State Department, Defense Department, NSC, all have different position, everybody wrangles. Sure, normal. But to have everybody lined up on one side and the president on another side, I don't know what to make of that. It is, let's say, strange.
Daniel Freed of the Atlantic Council, thank you very much.
My pleasure.